The galaxy was ancient and vast, its countless civilizations interconnected through a tapestry of alliances, trade routes, and centuries of diplomacy. Each species had its place, its story, its purpose. Some were conquerors, their empires forged in fire. Others were scholars, wielding knowledge as their greatest weapon. But amidst this web of power and prestige, humanity was a whisper, barely acknowledged, a species still confined to the fringes of their own solar system. To the galaxy, humans were insignificant. Their brief history of space exploration was laughable compared to the millennia of interstellar dominance boasted by other species. The Zalkresh, one of the more influential races, regarded humans with a mixture of amusement and disdain. A primitive species barely capable of lightspeed travel, one of their ambassadors had scoffed in a meeting of the Council of Ascended Races. They are fragile, divided, and short-lived. What threat could they possibly pose? Other species echoed these sentiments. The Acrians, a race of highly advanced bioengineers, dismissed humanity as too violent and self-destructive to ever reach galactic relevance. The Kavaran merchant guilds saw Earth as a polluted rock with limited resources, hardly worth the effort of exploitation. Even the most warlike species, like the reptilian Vorok, deemed humanity unworthy of conquest. To them, Earth was a backwater world populated by a race that could barely manage itself, let alone pose a challenge to galactic order. But there were whispers, small, fleeting observations that some dismissed as paranoia. Ancient records spoke of species that had underestimated humanity's ancestors, only to be surprised by their ferocity and resilience. A Zelaran historian, one of the galaxy's oldest scholars, once noted, "No species survives the destruction of its own world without becoming something dangerous." His words were ignored, drowned out by the overwhelming hubris of the galactic elite. When humanity was finally discovered during an exploratory mission near the Sol system, it confirmed the galaxy's assumptions. Earth's surface bore scars of environmental collapse and centuries of warfare. The humans themselves were unpredictable independent nations often at odds with each other, with no central authority to unify their ambitions. Their technology, though innovative, was crude by galactic standards. Observers saw their weapons and thought them relics of a bygone age. Their ships, while effective within their system, were slow, poorly armored, and entirely unsuited for interstellar conflict. Humanity's flaws were clear for all to see. They were impatient, emotional, and prone to self-destruction. It was easier to mock their shortcomings than to acknowledge the quiet danger in their adaptability, their relentless curiosity, and their unmatched capacity for survival. Few in the galaxy had ever seen such a precarious blend of ingenuity and chaos, and fewer still thought it worth considering. Those who doubted the prevailing narrative were dismissed as alarmists. After all, humanity was just one more species in a galaxy teeming with life. They were weak, and in a galaxy governed by the strong, the weak had no place but to serve or to vanish. The galaxy was at peace, and humanity was irrelevant. Or so they believed. It began as an unremarkable footnote in the annals of galactic politics. The Trevlax Dominion, a middling empire known for aggressive expansion, turned its attention to Earth. To them, humanity was an easy target, a species rich in resources but lacking the means to defend itself. They saw Earth's scattered defenses and fractured governments as a gift, an invitation to plunder without resistance. The invasion was swift. Trevlax ships breached Earth's atmosphere, their soldiers descending in waves. Major cities were targeted first, their infrastructure dismantled with brutal efficiency. The Trevlax didn't see the need for subtlety. They had conquered more advanced civilizations with ease, and to them, humanity was little more than a primitive nuisance. The first days of the invasion were a massacre. Millions perished as the Trevlax swept across continents, confident that humanity would fall to its knees like so many others before them. But humanity did not surrender. Where other species might have broken under the weight of such an overwhelming force, humans retaliated with a fury that caught their invaders off guard. At first, the resistance was chaotic local militias and scattered armies fighting desperate, uncoordinated battles. But within weeks, humanity began to adapt. Nations set aside centuries of conflict, uniting under a singular goal: survival. Lines of communication were established, resources pooled, and strategies coordinated. Human engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, analyzing captured Trevlax technology. What they couldn't replicate, they modified. What they couldn't modify, they weaponized. In record time, human ingenuity turned the Trevlax's own tools against them. Guerrilla tactics became humanity's specialty, and the invaders, who were accustomed to facing straightforward opposition, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Supply lines were sabotaged, critical equipment stolen or destroyed. Urban warfare became a nightmare for the Trevlax as human fighters used the ruins of their own cities as traps. The Trevlax were unprepared for the psychological aspect of human warfare. They expected compliance, fear, and desperation. Instead, they encountered defiance and an unnerving willingness to sacrifice everything for even the smallest victory. Human soldiers would destroy entire regions rather than allow them to fall into enemy hands, leaving the Trevlax with nothing to claim but ashes. Civilians became as dangerous as soldiers, sabotaging operations and ambushing patrols with homemade weapons. No species they had encountered before had fought with such reckless determination. When the tide finally turned, it was with devastating finality. Humanity launched a coordinated strike on the Trevlax flagship, an assault that should have been impossible given the technological disparity. Yet the humans succeeded, their ingenuity and unyielding resolve tearing through the Trevlax defenses. The destruction of the flagship marked the end of the invasion. What was left of the Trevlax forces retreated, limping back to their empire with tales of humanity's ferocity etched into their memories. The galaxy took notice. Humanity had faced an empire that should have crushed them without effort and won. For the first time, the whispers began to shift. No longer were humans dismissed as insignificant. They were something else now, something unpredictable. Something dangerous. The galaxy's response was immediate and decisive. News of the Trevlax defeat spread rapidly, shocking the established powers. To the greater empires, it was unthinkable that a primitive species had managed to overpower an interstellar force. What began as curiosity soon turned into unease, and unease gave way to fear. If humans could defeat the Trevlax, what else were they capable of? A coalition was formed, composed of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. They saw humanity as a threat that had to be neutralized before it could grow beyond control. Diplomatic overtures were abandoned. Peace was never an option. The coalition's fleets assembled at the edges of human territory, their combined forces a show of overwhelming might. Their intent was clear: annihilation. Humanity did not wait for the blow to land. They had seen what was coming and prepared accordingly. Every resource, every ounce of ingenuity, was poured into their survival. Factories churned day and night, producing ships, weapons, and defenses at a breakneck pace. Scientists worked tirelessly, turning scraps of alien technology into tools of war. What they lacked in refinement, they made up for in sheer determination. When the coalition's fleets entered human space, they expected a swift and decisive victory. What they encountered instead was chaos. Humanity's tactics were unconventional, unpredictable, and utterly ruthless. The coalition, accustomed to orderly engagements and calculated strategies, struggled to adapt. Human ships moved in erratic patterns, exploiting weaknesses no other species had thought to target. Civilian ships were turned into decoys and traps, drawing coalition forces into ambushes. Entire planets were abandoned, only for their surfaces to erupt in explosions when enemy troops landed. The humans fought not just to win but to devastate. They used psychological warfare on a level that horrified their enemies. Entire fleets were lured into dead zones and destroyed with no survivors left to report back. Coalition ships would find messages scrawled into the wreckage of battles, warnings, threats, or even simple taunts. Every encounter drove home a single, chilling fact: humanity was not fighting to coexist. They were fighting to ensure that no one would ever threaten them again. For the coalition, the cost of the war quickly spiraled out of control. Resources drained, morale crumbled, and internal dissent began to fracture alliances. Their forces were not prepared for the sustained brutality of a human counteroffensive. One by one, coalition members began withdrawing, unwilling to sacrifice more for what now seemed an unwinnable war. The turning point came when humanity struck deep into coalition space, targeting key planets and installations with surgical precision. Entire sectors were crippled in days, their infrastructure reduced to ruins. In one final act of defiance, humanity destroyed a coalition fleet that had been stationed to protect one of the most prominent alien homeworlds. The message was unmistakable: humanity was not just surviving, they were winning. By the end of the war, the galaxy was left in a state of stunned silence. The coalition was shattered, its members retreating to lick their wounds. Humanity had done the impossible, and the galaxy would never forget. The war was over, but its echoes lingered across the galaxy. What remained of the once proud coalition retreated into silence, their fleets shattered and their worlds scarred. Alien civilizations, once united by their disdain for humanity, now whispered of the Terrans with a mixture of fear and awe. Humanity had not just survived, they had risen from the brink of destruction to become a force that no one dared challenge again. Across the galaxy, the whispers spread. Stories of human resilience, their merciless strategies, and their unrelenting will to fight became legend. On distant worlds, children were warned to behave, or the Terrans would come for them. In the halls of power, leaders debated how to coexist with this new reality. Some spoke of diplomacy, hoping to placate humanity before their ambition grew further. Others argued for isolation, believing it was safer to stay out of humanity's path entirely. For humanity, the victory came at a heavy cost. Their cities lay in ruins, their populations diminished, and the scars of war etched into every corner of their world. But they had no time for mourning. They knew what they had become in the eyes of the galaxy. To show weakness now would invite further conflict, and so they embraced the fear they had instilled. Earth became a fortress. Massive fleets patrolled its skies, and every inch of the planet was fortified. Human colonies spread outward, not as explorers, but as conquerors. Any world that resisted their expansion was swiftly subdued, its resources absorbed into the growing Terran dominion. Diplomacy, when offered, was curt and left no room for negotiation. Humanity no longer sought approval or alliances, they demanded respect through strength. Yet, amidst the newfound dominance, there was unease. Philosophers and thinkers questioned the cost of their ascendance. Had humanity lost its identity in the process of survival? They had become what they once feared, an unstoppable force that others viewed as a threat. But the majority saw no other path. They remembered the invasion, the countless lives lost, and the sheer indifference of the galaxy that had deemed them unworthy of existence. Their brutality had been born not of ambition, but necessity. The galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Trade routes shifted to avoid human-controlled space. Treaties were drawn up in secrecy, ensuring that no single empire could risk angering the Terrans. Even the most powerful civilizations lived in quiet terror of what humanity might do next. In time, humanity became more than just a species, they became a symbol. To some, they represented the cost of underestimation. To others, they were a warning of what desperation could create. But to the galaxy at large, they were a name spoken in hushed tones, a shadow that loomed over every decision. And so, the galaxy whispered humanity's name, not in reverence or respect, but in fear. For they had proven that survival was not about strength alone, it was about the will to do whatever it took, no matter the cost. And the Terrans had shown they were willing to pay that price in full.